CNN's live broadcast of Good Night and Good Luck, starring George Clooney, is going to begin in less than 30 minutes. At the bottom of your screen, you can see the facts about the cast and the creative team of the play, just like you would in your playbill at the theater. You saw outside as crowds were filing in, and now you see the inside as the crowds are waiting to watch the play that will begin at the top of the hour. The Winter Theater can host around 1,500 people, so it's bound to be packed tonight. This is the penultimate show. The last one will be tomorrow night, but tonight it's carried around the world live right here on CNN. And right now, we want to take a closer look at the real Edward R. Murrow, a legendary figure in the history of television news. As a war correspondent, intrepid reporter, and fierce interviewer, he embodied journalism at its finest. CNN's John Berman has more on his life and career.
This is no time for men who oppose Senator McCarthy's methods to keep silent, or for those who approve.
Edward R. Murrow standing up to Joseph McCarthy at the height of the Red Scare. That moment is the dramatic conclusion of George Clooney's Broadway play, Good Night and Good Luck.
Edward R. Murrow is one of the most important figures in American journalism.
Murrow was born into a poor Quaker family in North Carolina. The family moved west, and Murrow graduated from Washington State University. Despite no formal journalistic training, he burst into the American consciousness as a war correspondent for CBS.
I'm standing on a rooftop looking out over London. Off to my left, far away in the distance, I can see just that faint, red, angry snap of anti-aircraft bursts against the steel blue sky.
From flying on bombing missions to watching the Nazis take over Austria, to bringing the shocking details of the Blitz to American living rooms from a London rooftop. Murrow revolutionized war reporting with his on-the-ground coverage. Later, Murrow turned his remarkable journalistic reputation into captivating radio and eventually television programs, reporting the news, interviewing celebrities, and famously tackling controversial topics, including McCarthyism.
If there was any moment when the risk was greatest for a journalist to come up against Joe McCarthy, it was in early 1954.
We will not walk in fear one of another. We will not be driven by fear into an age of unreason.
He gave McCarthy nearly half an hour on his program to respond.
Murrow is the symbol, the leader, and the cleverest of the jackal pack.
Murrow's broadcasts on McCarthy dramatically changed public perception about the anti-communist crusade.
Murrow's insight was the way to get Americans to start to think differently about McCarthy was to show them that he was flawed.
But his powerful reporting soured his relationship with CBS. In 1961, he was appointed by President John F. Kennedy to run the United States Information Agency, broadcasting around the world.
It takes a little while to become accustomed to trying to answer questions rather than asking them.
Where his commitment to free speech and the truth led him to direct the agency to accurately cover events.
We are expanding our television operation.
Murrow died after a battle with cancer in 1967, but his legacy lives on today in the work of journalists around the world and to all those who remember his immortal words at the close of each broadcast.
Good night and good luck.
All right, welcome back to a very windy and rainy Winter Garden Theater here. I'm joined by CNN's chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. So, Brian, help us draw the parallels of Edward R. Murrow's life and the events then to now.
The parallels are downright eerie. We are talking about the exact same themes today that Murrow was experiencing in the 1950s. Journalistic courage in an age and a climate of fear. Corporate leaders perhaps being timid, not sure how to handle government pressure, whether to stand up or back down. And we're actually seeing it right now at the exact same network that Murrow helped build, the CBS network. The CBS's parent company, Paramount, is right now trying to get a merger through Washington, trying to get the Trump administration's approval. And it may be striking a deal with Trump in order to make that happen, a payoff, something that 60 Minutes correspondents describe as extortion. So Murrow would have a lot to say about that, certainly. And I think some of the themes we're going to see in the play tonight resonate really strongly at CBS and at other major networks right now.
Yeah, and just remind our audience about what was going on in the 1950s and the kind of pressure CBS was facing from sponsors because of Murrow's coverage of McCarthy.
Back then, Alcoa, the aluminum company, was the most important sponsor, the one and only sponsor for Murrow's program. And Alcoa was under pressure from Senator Joseph McCarthy to go ahead and back down. So you had advertiser pressure and you had government pressure. You had parts of the federal government back then being wielded against CBS. Murrow, in that era, it was about this anti-communist Red Scare. Allegations about people not being loyal to America. We hear Murrow famously talk about do not confuse dissent with disloyalty. Some of the same themes, again, these days. You hear some of Trump administration's targets and critics saying that a climate of fear has once again come over the United States. What do journalists do in an environment like that? Again, I think Murrow has lessons for us today.
And what are some of those lessons? Edward R. Murrow obviously faced a lot of pressure on his own. It wasn't just CBS. Edward R. Murrow himself did. Yeah. And he, showed fearlessness and courage in the face of it.
Yes, he was very precise, very careful, very calculated in the way that he used that then new medium of television. I reread all these biographies of Murrow and his producing partner, Fred Friendly, the head of CBS, Bill Paley, and I was amazed by two things. One, how faithful this play is to the facts, to the real life drama of the 1950s. And number two, how the medium of television itself was brand new at the time. Paley and Murrow together and Friendly, they created the form of television documentary. They figured out how to merge pictures and words and essays on television to great dramatic effect to tell the story of what Senator Joseph McCarthy was doing. But Murrow did it very carefully. He waited for the right story, for the right subjects, for the right moment in order to tell the country about the demagoguery of McCarthy. And by doing so, he was able to not only inform tens of millions of viewers, but actually change the course of history.
And what was striking to me, too, as you think back at that time period, watching Edward R. Murrow was a shared experience by so many Americans because there wasn't the media landscape you have now that is so fractured and saturated. So just talk a little bit about how that landscape has changed, but also how tonight is a way for us to have a shared experience.
Exactly. I was thinking about that this is something that is live around the world on television and online, streaming as well as the old-fashioned way of television, and it is something that you have to catch live. This play is ending tomorrow. By the way, not only is this play one of a kind because of George Clooney and the others involved, it is the highest grossing play in Broadway history week after week. It keeps setting and beating its own records. We've never seen a play perform this well on Broadway, and because it ends tomorrow, watching it tonight live around the world is the ultimate way to get to experience it for folks who haven't had tickets. So I think that's special in that way. It's also special because, as Clooney has talked about, these themes of courage resonate so widely. It's not just about one broadcast journalist and one producer standing strong against government pressure. It's now about many different journalists and many different organizations doing the same.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian Stelter. We're just minutes away from history, the live broadcast of Good Night and Good Luck, seen around the world only here on CNN.